got a response back on my text to him yet, so still waiting to find out. But I thought he was.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll get started in about 30 seconds here. We still have quite a few people filing in. All right, Glenn, you're good to start us.
All right, thanks, Derek, and thank you to everyone that's joining us tonight. I know we got a big crowd. We really appreciate, first off, everything that everyone's doing. It's been a long day with the announcement today. It's been a long pause, and it's been a long season. And I know you guys, men and women on here, are on the front lines of all of this for us. And we can't thank you enough for everything that you're doing. And, you know, there's, you know, it's a tough time that we're all trying to navigate through, and we're hopeful that this today marks kind of the start of our return to hockey season and the rest of a season starting on January 4th. So to start off, I just want to let everyone know, I'm sure there's going to be questions. We're going to do our best to answer some of the big questions at the start. But if you have questions along the way, post those in the Q&A. Either Derek, Ricky, our marketing manager, will answer the easy ones right there in the Q&A. Otherwise, he will ask them to us at the end, or in some cases, we might just have to get back to you afterwards with those answers. So feel free to post those in the Q&A, and we'll go from there. So on the webinar tonight, our panelists include myself, Glenn Andreessen. I'm the executive director with Minnesota Hockey. We've also got our president, Steve Olaheiser. Our vice president of hockey operations, John Perry, is on. We have Mike McMillan, director of high performance and the USA Hockey coach in chief. And he's also the executive director of the Minnesota High School Coaches Association on the boys side. So he's been working on this from that angle a lot too. We have Mike Terwilliger, who we'll talk more about later tonight, as he's our hockey programs manager, but for the remainder of this season, he's going to be our Minnesota Hockey COVID coordinator or COVID contact for our associations, and we'll get into more detail on that. And we've also got Eric Halverson, who's representing the Minnesota Ice Arena Managers Association. We've been working hand in hand with MIAMA throughout all this, and we'll talk about some of the regulations and protocols that we implemented or will be implementing, all with the endorsement of MIAMA. And they're doing the same thing, implementing things within their rinks that are endorsed by us. So those will be the group tonight. And hopefully between all of us, we can answer questions that you guys might have as we go forward. Derek, if you want to go to the next slide here. What we'd like to do tonight is give you an update on where things are at. We wanted to do this on Monday night, but obviously with the governor postponing his announcement until today, we moved it to tonight, but we didn't want to delay it any longer, even though we still have some questions that need to be answered, but I know everyone else is antsy to find out what we do know and what they can plan on. So we'll give you an update on what that announcement was today, what we've done, what we proposed, and kind of what things will look like coming back. And then Steve and Mike McMillan are going to talk about our board of directors voting on Sunday night to extend our season So they'll give some more details on that, as well as high performance and roster and coaching deadlines, things like that. Then we'll talk to Mike Terwilliger, our COVID coordinator, who will be working directly with associations coming out of this when we're allowed to get back on the ice. And then at the end, we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So that's where we'll go tonight. So where we're at, the governor made his announcement today. The executive order came out. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to see that or anything, but we found out what this would be today, along with everybody else. We had hoped that we would have a little more heads up, but we found out this morning through the media. And I think we can say we're not excited about the announcement. We were planning and proposing to come back this Saturday, the 19th. We sent we sent a proposal to the governor's office that we'll cover tonight, where we really thought we could get our kids back on the ice safely. We did propose that we would go practices only to start, but we wanted to do that starting on Saturday. Unfortunately, that's was not done, but I guess the good news in this is that we have a hard date for starting. We were assured, and it's in the executive order. It's not like we're getting to January 4th and then they'll make another announcement on if youth sports can start. They are saying that youth sports can start on January 4th. And so we will be sanctioning our activities on those days, and our teams and players can come back to the rinks at that time for practices. We have also been assured that we will be working with the governor's office as soon as tomorrow to figure out when games and other things like that can take place. So as part of this executive order, rinks may open, but they're under fitness center rules. So that means individual training only. So for the next 2 weeks, there can't be practices, team practices, anything like that, but there can be individual training as part of that. There can be, up to 2 whole households, I believe, on the rink, with several restrictions on physical distancing and things like that. But associations cannot host indoor activities at this time, not until that January 4th date. Outdoor activities, I'll say that we're seeking clarification on that. Within the executive order, we've been told there can't be practices outdoors, but if you read what the executive order says, and it's written right here, and Derek bolded the important parts, but outdoor workouts, practices, training, or skill building, provided that such activities do not involve spectators, participants from more than 3 households, and more than 1 coach or instructor. We were told that so practices can't happen, but if you go by this, there are certain things you can do. So physical distancing of at least 6 feet must be maintained between members of different households at all time. A group of up to 3 households and a coach or instructor must maintain at least 12 feet of physical distancing from other groups. All participants must follow the outdoor rec guidelines. All organized youth sports, games, competitions, tournaments, races, spectator events, or other similar sports events continue to be prohibited during these next 2 weeks. So I know there's a lot of questions on outdoor activities. Again, we'll find out more clarification on this tomorrow, but we wanted to make sure you guys were aware of what was said around outdoor activities. Where we've been over these last 4 weeks, I can assure you, we've been working hard on this, trying to get our kids back on the ice. We've worked with I mentioned the Ice Arena Managers Association. We've worked at the Department of Health, had meetings with them. Commissioner Tomes, who's in charge of youth sports for the governor right now. We submitted a proposal to them about 2 weeks ago. And in that, there were several rules or regulations that we were willing to implement in order to kind of get their blessing on moving forward. Derek, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll touch on what those are. So our board of directors met on Sunday night and approved that these things going forward would take place, and they still will take place January 4th. For how long we keep them in place remains to be seen, but effective January 4th, these protocols will be in place. Again, with the endorsement of MIAMA. So no locker rooms for the time being. Again, we're coming back as practice only. So no locker rooms, no bags. If there's questions about why that is to discourage kids from sitting around, taking gear off and throwing it in their bag, or carrying stuff in that they may not be able to carry in if they're not wearing it. So no bags in arenas. We put limitations on spectators to no spectators for when we come back, with the exception of mites and 8U, who would be allowed one parent or guardian in the arena for their practices. All players must come fully dressed. That was previously a guideline. It is now a rule enacted by Minnesota Hockey Board members for this season. The exception would be goalies who would be asked to come half dressed and just put their large pads on when they're at the rink, but have everything else on when they get there. The entry and exit time has been put at 10 minutes. Following our discussions with MIAMA, they felt that was a good time, and we agreed. Again, kids need to come fully dressed and leave fully dressed, with the exception of skates, helmets, gloves. Get the skates on, get on the ice, get off the ice, get your skates off, and go. Again, and they shouldn't be in locker rooms doing that. There's also rules for this season of no resurfacing for any Minnesota hockey games, and no dry land in arenas, which was previously a guideline, is now a rule for this season. Derek, if you want to go back to the previous slide, I just want to make sure I touch on the continued efforts there. So tomorrow we're meeting again with Commissioner Tomes. Our return to play group from Minnesota Hockey will be meeting with him, as well as members of the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission and MIAMA, really to get clarification around some things, but also to immediately start work on what things look like. They assured us that they would continuously meet with us to figure out things such as when games can occur, what kind of protocols need to be in place for that to happen, and what else we might need to do going forward. And there could be things that we have implemented, rules we've implemented that aren't quite there yet, or they say you have to do this or that to get to gameplay. But when we know what those things are, we will immediately communicate those out to everyone on this call and to our membership as well. Thanks, Derek. If you want to go forward. Now at this time, I'm going to pass it on first to Steve Olaheiser and then to Mike McMillan. Steve can talk about the recent board meeting and the decision to extend our season and what that looks like. So Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for your presentation. And I also want to echo Glenn's words. I want to thank everybody on this call for everything you do for the players of Minnesota hockey, and for all of our participants and your associations. And it's been a long, arduous day. It's been a frustrating day, and it's been a disappointing day. Yeah, in my position anyway. I think several people on this call can echo that too. It's not where we wanted to be. This is not what we wanted to tell you tonight. But yes, the board of directors met in a special meeting on Sunday night. We had a special board meeting called to review and implement some the rules that Glenn just presented. as far as the return to play and whatnot there. We also met to confirm and agree that we would extend the season. On the screen right now, you have the agreement how we had it was that it was agreed by the board, and it was pretty much, well, it was unanimous in agreement. The district's tournaments will be completed by March 14th. It's been moved back to the March 14th timeframe, whereas before it was in the President's Day weekend in February. The region tournaments will be on March 19th through the 21st. And then the state tournaments will be on March 26th through the 28th. That gives us a little more time for our season. We had hoped that if we had started on Saturday this week, we would have another 2 weeks of season involved in January. But that wasn't to be, much to the disappointment. And we'll move forward from there and try to provide as much of a season as we can going forward. At the same time, Minnesota Hockey has always required that team rosters were locked and finalized by December 31st. We realized that a lot of teams in a lot of areas of the state had not, got through somewhat of the tryout and review processes before the pause started. And there's other entities within Minnesota Hockey, i.e. the Junior Gold program, that won't be able to create their rosters until after the high school starts their season, and we know where we're at with their high school programming. So the board of directors agreed that we would extend that roster deadline to January 31st, and that'll be the new date. So, and right now I think we'll turn it over to Mike McMillan. He has a few words for us on coaches requirement and deadlines.
Yeah, thanks. I'll go quick and fairly brief. USA Hockey as well has been working, across the country with different states and districts and regions that have, also faced COVID pauses, shutdowns. And on the coaching education side, we made the decision that coaches that have not completed their certification, not only in Minnesota but nationally, but they have not completed all their requirements, we will be extending coach education program into January. Coaches may receive information that they do redline. So if you have MIC programs as an example, or coaches that haven't decided, or you're still in the process of that before the pause, they will be able to get a COVID temporary card after December 1st. And we'll also be able to a virtual clinic if there's one available. But if there isn't, they will certainly be able to be temp carded and be able to coach the rest of the season. So in the past, if they didn't receive their certification by December 31st, they'd be removed from the bench. So we've made the decision to extend that. There'll be more information coming out through your association registrars, your district registrars, and the state of Minnesota. Just a little tidbit though for association leaders that there are opportunities to work with your team during this next couple of weeks. At the college level, we have weekly meetings with our team, giving them information, sharing videos. Minnesota Hockey has put together on their YouTube channel webinars that are also available for the coaches and the players to use during this time before everyone gets back together on January 4th. So we're going to try to do what we can to support coaches through this time and give them the resources that they need. Thank you.
Hey, Mac, while you're here, and can you put your high performance hat on and just update everyone who may have questions about the high performance season?
Yeah, high performance dates do not change because of this, because our state tournaments, Minnesota Hockey state tournaments are the 26th to the 28th. The high performance programs will start in April after Easter. I believe the first weekend's the 9th. I don't have the dates in front of me, but they are on the Minnesota Hockey website, and all the programs have been outlined. We will be making some changes, shrinking the 15 and 14 program a little bit just because of the timing of it. But the festivals and the tryouts and all that stuff are on schedule to take place during the regular dates. I see Eric Halverson smiling, so I don't have to call him and change anything, but that's the plan right now. If all things move forward starting January 4th, we're on schedule to move forward with those dates as well.
Great, thanks. And Eric, we'll get to you after we talk to Twig. But from there, let's move on to Mike Terwilliger. I'll just start off by saying, you know, we use this pause to really identify kind of things that were happening prior to, and there were just so many questions from associations wondering about quarantine, who needs to quarantine, what do we do in this situation, who do we talk to at the Department of Health, things like that. So we realized that Minnesota Hockey really needs to you know, have someone in that role that can kind of be a conduit between the Department of Health and our associations, maybe answer some of the questions that come in, but also kind of, you know, work with the Department of Health on best practices and how we get things up and running. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Twig, and he can tell you a little bit about what he'll be doing now, but also especially when we're back on the ice on the 4th.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. So as Glenn said, I'm Mike Terwilliger, and most people call me Twig. So if you hear someone say the name Twig, it's I'm the guy. So I'm excited about kind of this new challenge, and mainly just to help out associations and help the COVID contacts in each association. It's you know, what you guys are all doing right now is unbelievable in a normal year, but especially this year during the pandemic. And so I want to, you know, more than anything, be here as a support to you and to try to be a resource and to help to all of you. So I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to working with a lot of you even more. So I'll talk just a little bit about my role and a couple of responsibilities that I'll have. And then I'll touch base really quick on an upcoming association COVID training. And then just give an example of kind of coordinating with the Department of Health on new quarantine guidelines and things like that. So Derek, if you go to the next slide. So so these are just some bullet points on what my role will be. So again, more than anything, I want to be a resource for the association presidents and for the association COVID contacts. And so I want to make sure that you've got the information that you need and your questions are able to be answered in a timely fashion. And again, they're to answer just basic questions and to help. Another big part of my role will be to work with you guys, the ACCs and the Department of Health, just on getting some common data points. And so been working closely with Jane Griffith at the Department of Health on coming up with just some common data points that we can get across all the different associations that the Department of Health would like us to have. So I'll be talking about that at the COVID contact training. I'll also be communicating things from Minnesota Hockey and the Department of Health as they come up. So I'll try not to fill your inbox every single day, but I will be from time to time peppering you with things just to make sure that you're up to date and you have the best and the newest and the most accurate information that you need to do your job. And again, hopefully it'll save you time. I've been emailing this past week with a lot of different contacts and associations, and they're sharing the amount of time and effort that they're putting in, and it's pretty amazing. So hopefully I can decrease a little bit of that for you as well. I'm going to provide support with the Department of Health. So for an example, say if you've got a team, or say your association COVID contact is having trouble getting an answer back from the Department of Health, you can connect with me and I can hopefully, you know, speed up that process or help get you the information you need in a more timely fashion. So you're not sitting around for 2 or 3 days and the team's on pause while you wait for an answer. Also going to work with the ACCs to compile COVID data at the association, district, and state level. And so again, I'll explain more of that at the training. And then also just communicate with MIAMA, who's just been a fantastic organization to work with this year. And we're glad Eric's on the call here tonight. And Matt Hennon does a great job in their leadership, and Dean Molso. And as they have things that they might want communicated to you and associations, I'll make sure you get that out as well. So Derek, you want to go to the next slide? So even though I got a B+ in biology in 10th grade, my role is not to make final determinations on medical issues. So again, I want to help connect the dots for you all, for the ACCs, but my job is not to be ruling on medical issues and things like that. That'll still, you know, the Department of Health will continue to be the decision maker on things and to kind of dole out the official advice. So I won't be there to make a final decision on a team quarantine or a player returning and those kinds of things. I can certainly give advice and say, here's what I think will happen. Here's typically what they would do. Here's what the protocol is. But again, that's officially going to still come from the Department of Health, just so you know that as well. And then also there'll be for the COVID contact training. It may be as early as this Sunday night, but I'll be in touch tomorrow with everybody. I'm still awaiting word back because the Department of Health wants to be on that, which is fantastic. They want to partner with us on that and be able to do a little presentation as part of that training. And so I want to make sure it's at a time that works for our friends at the MDH. So as soon as we kind of have that confirmed, we'll get that information out as well. And then, just, I know, like, you get a lot of questions, like, for instance, like on the CDC quarantine protocols that have been adjusted recently, where it no longer has to be 14 days, even though my friend of the Department of Health says that's still the safest advice they can give, but it also can be not right now, quarantine can be, for instance, 10 days with no symptoms or 7 days with no symptoms. And if you have a negative test on day 5, 6, or 7, then you'll be able to get off of quarantine. So just things like that. We want to make sure that you guys have all that information, and if you're unsure on things, you've got someone that you can connect with and get an answer back in a timely fashion. So I look forward to connect them, especially with the ACCs quite a bit, and helping you out at the association level. So thanks again.
All right, thanks, Mike. Real quick, I just want to give Eric Halverson a chance to talk specifically about kind of what the next 2 weeks look like within arenas, with them being open, but basically hockey activities not being allowed. So Eric Halverson had a really good, I guess, kind of interpretation. He runs the rink over at Plymouth Ice Center. And so, Eric, if you kind of want to talk about that and what MIAMA's kind of policy is going forward for those 2 weeks are.
Sure. Thank you for having us on your webinar tonight. Appreciate it. The last few months, I think we've always had a relationship with Minnesota Hockey, but we've had the opportunity now to work a lot more closely the last few months due to COVID. Obviously, we learned a lot of information today, and we're still going through the executive order and trying to interpret, all the different scenarios that could come out of that. We're going to also receive more clarification from TOMS tomorrow, and we can kind of make some final determinations then. Our initial thought, or at least my personal initial thought, was that individual ice trainings could take place with a single household out on the ice, and then possibly 2 households with a trainer. We were thinking maybe, we don't know what that household number is at the current moment, but we were thinking maybe 5 people in a household with 1 instructor, which would make 6, or 2 households up to 10 with 1 instructor. Again, no hockey activities can take place on the ice. They have to be 12 feet apart out on the ice surface. The current order looks like you would have to wear a mask on the ice at all times during these next 2 weeks. And every rink is going to have to make their own determination on what is going to be allowed in their facility. Every facility is governed a different way, whether it's through a city municipality or through a school or a university, or it's privately run. So they will have to determine if it makes sense for them to open, if the costs outweigh the revenue coming in for these ice times. But MIAMA has not made a stance exactly what every rink is going to do the next 2 weeks. We're going to hopefully learn some more information tomorrow. But we're in support of, Minnesota Hockey and their policies and rules that they'll be rolling out here for the return to play as we continue to work forward in getting kids and the adults back out on the ice surface. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Hopefully we get some more clarification tomorrow on, individual exercise and what we can do on the ice surface. But as it looks right now, people have to be 12 feet apart out on the ice, and how we enforce that and police that is a difficult task right now for the rinks to try to figure out. I think our partnership with Minnesota Hockey before the pause has been great, working with the youth associations in most cases, and making sure that players are coming fully dressed has been, something that's been great for us. Glenn, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, but if you wouldn't mind sticking around in case there's questions related to arenas here as we get into the Q&A portion of this, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
All right. So Derek, let's move on to that. One of the things too, before we get into that, is I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys about the process. So the ultimate decision on all this stuff comes down to the governor and what he will and won't, allow. Our method of working with the governor's office is with Commissioner Tarek Tomes, who's been put in charge of youth sports. So that's who our communication goes to. I do feel that he was strongly advocating to get us on the ice as soon as Saturday, but he doesn't have the ultimate decision. And I think the Department of Health really does have the power to influence what Governor Walz said. So, I think the thinking behind this January 4th date is that despite numbers and cases being better, they're not quite good enough. So I wanted to add that as to a little bit of an explanation of why I think we are where we are. So as far as questions, common questions that we have been getting already, so we knew we could answer these as best we could tonight, although we won't have all the answers to these even. When will games begin? We don't know that yet. However, there have been some dates pitched to Commissioner Tomes, to which he did not reject. I feel confident in saying that the games would be taking place, or the aim is for games to be taking place no longer than 2 weeks after this pause ends. But that is still to be determined. But that's, we want games to be able to happen as soon as we can once kids get on the ice. So we'll be working toward that, but we don't have a date yet settled. And we hopefully we'll learn more about that tomorrow with Commissioner Tomes. But as soon as we know, we'll get it out. The next two questions, I'm going to ask Steve to tackle these. When will tournaments be allowed? And also, what about out-of-state travel from our teams going out and from teams, once games are allowed, from teams coming in? So Steve, if you want to touch on these, that'd be great. Steve, you there?
Sorry about that. I was not unmuted myself. When will tournaments be allowed? That'll depend a lot on when games are again back in play, and there's still some thought processes that are, we've missed so much time in the season already. There's so many league games, district games, games that need to be played that there may not be ice available for tournament games. It's hard to answer that question tonight. I wish I could. There's some districts that are taking a line that they may not have tournaments all this year going forward, and there's other districts that are planning to have tournaments. So if tournaments are allowed, I mean, that's going to be kind of a call from the governor too. It was one of the things that was told to us that was probably one of the key problems was the congregation of people at tournaments and the spread of people traveling together and being around each other in closed areas during and after tournaments. So we're gonna work on that. We're gonna work to try to get tournaments allowed. I know a lot of associations depend on revenue from tournaments, so it's something that we are very concerned about and want to make sure that that is addressed. Out-of-state travel, currently Minnesota pause wording is that no out-of-state travel, or out-of-state travel is strongly, not wanting to have that, or out-of-state teams coming in. But we know that there's several districts and several areas of the state that have cross-border league plays that have happened and do, and I know that with talking to district directors around the state that some will be allowing out-of-state travel and teams coming in from out of state to play their teams in their districts. The best answer I can give you there is to contact your local district director to determine if they're going to allow teams to play out of state. Minnesota hockey bylaws require that teams are supposed to have approval of their district directors to travel out of state. So, and for out of state teams to come in too. So I advise that you contact your district directors and find out what the policy is going to be in your specific district that you're in. So, Glenn.
Thank you. The last question before we get to the Q&A is how will all of this be enforced? And I think prior to the pause, there was a lot of kind of questions. Well, is the arena going to enforce this? Does the association have to enforce this? Does the team have to enforce this? And it's not a simple answer, but over the pause, we really kind of worked with MIAMA to say, you know, we agree it has to be a team effort. So we need arenas to help associations and associations to help arenas. You know, one thing that was mentioned that associations can do, volunteer hours are different for a lot of places, especially with a lot of concessions being closed. So you could give volunteer hours to some people within your association to be at the front door, making sure no one's coming in without all their gear on, making sure they're not coming in too early, making sure they're leaving at the right time, and making sure people aren't hanging out, congregating in lobbies and things like that. So just something to think about. That would help arenas a lot. Arenas can really help us by spacing out chairs and areas for where kids can get dressed that aren't in locker rooms, that are spaced out, and you know, putting signage up saying locker rooms are closed and things like that. So if we can just help each other out as much as we can for these next 2-3 months, we'll all do better, and keep our kids on the ice. So with that, Derek, if you wouldn't mind directing some questions that you received to the panel, we'll do our best to answer.
All right. Yeah, we have a lot of questions coming in. Tried to answer as many as I could as we were going through them, and we'll try to address these kind of in the order they came in. And I'll just say there is a chance that we don't get to all of the questions this evening just due to the sheer quantity, but we will plan to follow up and possibly provide some sort of a Q&A to answer as many of these as we possibly can at a later time. So with that, the first question here, will Minnesota Hockey be requesting any funding from the legislature or the governor for youth hockey associations?
I'll try to take that a little bit, Derek. I had a conversation with one of our district directors today, who actually had a conversation with one of his senators today at the legislative in Minneapolis and St. Paul. He was informed that there's a strong possibility that senator would drive, with the stimulus package that's being passed in Washington. There may be money available coming to Minnesota to direct to our associations. That's something that is very concerning to me, because I know a lot of associations have experienced significant issues financially because of the closing of their charitable gambling, with the bars being closed and restaurants being closed, and with the fact that their programming's been on hold, and registration dollars or ice costs and whatever that they have coming in have been held up. And also the fact that we were just talking about tournaments and the revenues generated from tournaments, possibility of that causing problems too. So yes, Minnesota hockey it's something that we are going to examine and work towards trying to find some funding from the state. We are also looking at within ourselves to see if there's some funding that we can, unfortunately it's not at the magnitude that the state legislature or the federal government can come forward with. So hoping that we can find something from them. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so definitely something we're working on. That's great. Another question, hopefully this is a fairly easy one. Several requests to get a copy of this recorded presentation.
Can you do that? We recorded
can.
it,
The question is for you.
right? At this present time, I don't see any reason why not. If associations would like to use it in their program, in the associations to inform other board members that couldn't be here, or to try to inform their membership, I believe that would be good, unless there's somebody on the panel that would object to that.
All right, thank you. We also received multiple questions regarding small bags, duffel bag type of thing for either coaches or players to carry in skates, gloves, and helmet. So I don't know if Glenn or if Eric want to take that one.
Well, I think when the board passed this rule on Sunday, it was, no bags. There are exceptions for referees who are going to be allowed to bring in a duffel bag, since they have a few other things that they need besides their helmet and skates. But they still have to come fully dressed, but they can bring in a duffel bag or backpack and leave those at the scorer's table. There were also some questions about, if my son or daughter has asthma or needs medication and that comes in a little bag, of course that stuff is absolutely okay. But I would say other bags to carry equipment, we're asking for now, carry your skates and your stick and put your gloves on and your helmet on if you have to, so your hands are a little more free. But we're saying no bags at this point.
Yeah, the biggest concern there, I think, is where do you start drawing the line? It's all designed for no big equipment bags and full equipment, but then pretty soon somebody's bringing in shin pads in their bag and shoulder pads in their bag. And so, yeah, I think the bag issue, we want to stick with no bags for players and come dressed, come ready to play.
Thank you. Question here in regard to how private rentals for individual training, what role do associations have in that in enforcing guidelines, and do they have any liability if these private rentals are not following the guidelines that the governor's order put out?
I can talk on the rink side quick before Glenn, you dive into the Minnesota hockey side. For private rentals, and it's if a rink decides to do them, that renter will have to have their own personal insurance. And talking with the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission and the epidemiologist, they would require them to carry their own personal insurance. They cannot fall under Minnesota hockey or their high school program. So they would need to have their own insurance policy to cover that liability.
Yeah, I think that sums it up from the Minnesota hockey side too. Since we can't sanction events within arenas until January 4th, associations shouldn't be liable for anything that a private instructor or group does within a rink.
All right, next question is regarding teams that are not eligible for region or state tournament play. Could you clarify if they what their season end date would be?
Well, seeing as this came from one of our district directors, it's please announce that non-region state tournaments are allowed to play out until the end of March. That pretty much sums it up, I think you could probably talk to your individual district directors in your district to find out the clarity of that. But as far as Minnesota hockey would be concerned, your season's still going. If you're qualified for regions, you're going to go play regions. Obviously, you're going to be doing that, and that's up to you how you decide how you're going to prepare for regions or state. But if you've been eliminated at your district level or you're not going to regions and state, I would assume that you're able to play up until that end of the season, as stipulated by the March end date.
Yeah, we have a large number of players that aren't eligible for state tournaments, whether they're mites or squirts, 8U, 10U. And so this extension of the season helps them in that they can keep playing through those, through that end of March date.
Exactly.
And just to clarify, Standard Minnesota Hockey, the last day of the Minnesota hockey season is the final day of our state tournaments. So as it stands, teams could play through March 20.
That is correct.
Question regarding clarification on the coach requirements. Sounds like the audio broke up on that one a little bit. Mac, could you touch base on that?
It's open-ended right now. We'll be reevaluating end of January. But I would say to be safe, try to get it done by January, end of January, unless there's unusual circumstances, i.e. junior gold gets pushed back, things like that we'll handle on an individual basis. And nobody will be left out if that's the case. But temp cards are available now. You don't have to wait. You don't have to even verify anything. Coaches can get those today.
Thanks, Mac. Question here regarding rink decisions to close earlier than, let's say they decide to close March 1st. Any guidance from Minnesota Hockey or MIAMA regarding the season extension and the challenge from rink closures?
Eric, do you want to touch on that first, or do you want?
Yeah, so yeah, we haven't heard too much from our membership yet on if they're going to be available past March 1st or whatever, but the rinks that we have heard from said that they're willing to extend, and I think they've reached out to Minnesota Hockey saying that they would be willing to extend. But I think that'll have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis if some rinks are going to be forced to close after March 1st.
Yeah, and I'll just say we'll continue to work with MIAMA and try to, if there are some cases like that, we will try to address that and work from there.
And I think some of that with those rinks that did close on March 1st, it was because our season typically ended right around that period of time. And so with our teams coming off the ice and not playing anymore, and the high school teams being done with their state tournament, there wasn't a whole lot of rental for them to keep that ice in. It costs a lot of money to keep those rinks up and running. So I can understand, but with our season extending now, there'll be, the option for some rental and significant revenue that they'll be able to recoup because they've been closed down too. So they need some money too.
Question regarding certain districts choosing not to extend their playoff timeframe. Will those teams be allowed to continue to play games in between districts and regions? And will there be any guidance to the districts on encouraging them to extend playoffs?
I'd have to have the conversation with the specific district directors on that issue. And that's something that I'll talk to the district director committee chairman, Jeremy Reed, and have put on a meeting coming up here. And when they have their next meeting to make sure, they pretty much allow that, because that would be concerning.
All right. We received multiple questions regarding plan to apply pressure on the state to get games started as soon as possible. That led into a number of questions regarding tournaments shortly after the 4th. Any insight on the game plan from there?
Well, I will say we will definitely be pushing for games to start as soon as possible. As I mentioned, our initial proposal was get us back on the ice in a practice only format, but let us do it on December 19th, with the hope being that January 1st we could start playing games. Now that the return to practice is delayed by 2 weeks, certainly I think we're going to be pushing to get games going. Now, are they, it remains to be seen, and we have to figure out what that looks like, if it's district games or can games take place wherever. I think that's all going to require input from the state and from, our board and things like that.
Another question kind of in a similar construct. do we feel the attempt to work with state and health officials over the past 4 weeks had any influence on the ability to, get kids back on the ice right now as it currently is? Was that a positive and fruitful endeavor, so to speak?
Can you repeat that one? Sorry.
Yeah, so the question came in asking if we believe the efforts to work with state officials and health officials positively influence the return of hockey.
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I think it's a positive that we have a date to come back, and it's a hard date, and we've been told we can come back. We've been told repeatedly how, hockey has been a leader in all of this, and they've been thankful for how all of our people within hockey have done this, especially over the pause. There were very few issues. People really seem to accept that. So I don't know. I mean, our philosophy was to work with them as much as we could, try and communicate with them. There were times of frustration where we wanted more meetings and we couldn't get them. But the conversations had all been positive, and I guess the most frustrating part was we didn't get any straight answers or full answers until this morning. So, I think we've had good communication with the Department of Health and Commissioner Tomes, and ultimately, I just think, so I'm hoping that's why we're allowed to come back, but a little frustrated that it's being delayed like it is. And I don't know the reason for that, other than I think the governor just made the call that he wasn't comfortable turning the dial too much at this point before the holidays.
Question here in regarding to Tier 1 national tournaments. Some concern on conflicts with our new state tournament dates. Could you clarify if USA Hockey is looking at changing their national tournament dates?
You're asking me?
You.
Yeah, Mac, go ahead.
Yeah, Mac, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, they're in the youth council. USA Hockey's youth council is in the process of evaluating the dates right now. We have 2 representatives that sit on the youth council for Minnesota Hockey, and that decision will probably be made shortly after the first of the year. And they have been notified that it is a conflict for Minnesota Hockey having the state tournament at the same date as the national tournament. So we will probably know, I believe it is between the 5th and the 7th of January, if that's been changed or not. For everyone on the call, there's a lot of places around the country that even haven't even played a game in their own district or own affiliate. So this isn't just an us thing; it's an everybody thing. So USA Hockey is strongly looking at moving that date.
Yeah, that's correct, Mac. It's not just us. There's issues going on all around the state, so or all around the country.
We had a great question related to spectators. Will there be people allowed to video any games under the spectator rules?
Ole, do you want to address that, or do you want me to?
I can address it, I believe.
Okay.
We agreed when we passed the rule that, if the team manager, one person wanted to go in to video, if there's live barns not available or whatever, and needed to do FaceTime or however, Zoom or whatever technology to broadcast that out to the parents that are outside the building or back at home or wherever they're at, that was fine. But we didn't want to see that there was 10 videographers in the arena. When we say no parents or spectators, that's what that rule means. And if the team manager is going to be there to do the videographing and broadcasting out, well, that's okay. Or it's the third coach or the fourth coach that's not on the bench, because there's only 2 coaches allowed on the bench. So there's a job for one of the coaches to be doing up in the stands. So.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and
Steve.
we would ask too, if someone is out there streaming it to people outside the rink, please don't all huddle up outside the rink at someone's car and watch together. Separate yourselves and watch on your own device.
Please.
Several questions in here regarding masks, and if masks will be required during play on the ice. Would anyone like to take on that question?
I'll address that one. That's a good question. That is not something that was part of our proposal to get back on the ice. However, in conversations with the Department of Health, they've hinted that that might be a requirement once we come back. However, that was not told to us yet. So we don't know that yet. I'll also say that there are other states where masks are required for players at all times. So Massachusetts, Wisconsin, Colorado, a number of others all require their players to wear masks for the entirety. So it wouldn't be unprecedented, but it's not something we've actively campaigned for, but it's possible that it might be a requirement to get kids back on the ice. So we don't know that yet, but it is a possibility.
Question here regarding if Minnesota Hockey has an opinion on kids traveling to neighboring states to either host practices, games, etc., and the impact it might have on hockey in Minnesota.
And I'm assuming that means during this
next 2 weeks. Clarification, yeah. Next 2 weeks. That was the question, is between now and January 4th.
Well, Oli and others can answer this too. I'll just say the governor was asked about this in his press conference today. And, he kind of said that they can't police these things, but the more that happens, the more spread of the disease, and, from a Minnesota hockey standpoint, the more spread of the disease, the more likely things get shut down again. So, I guess I would make the plea to not do that for these next 2 weeks. Steve or anyone else, feel free to jump in on that.
Well, my opinion has to be that the governor still has youth sports on pause, which is pretty much the same as what it was on pause before this. We don't come back to play until January 4th. That's what the governor's mandate says. You can agree with it or not. So I don't see how we can sanction teams up to that point going out of state.
Several questions related to bags for goalies. Glenn, do you want to clarify that real quick?
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure we included bags for goalies as not allowed, but Steve, am I wrong in saying that? We are asking goalies to just only bring their big pads in separately and come in?
I thought we had kind of agreed that because you got skates, you got a big stick, you got a helmet, kind of hard for a goalie to trundle in carrying. I think that there again, we want to come in as dressed as much as possible. The idea is that there's to mitigate the interaction of players before the game and taking up time and sitting around talking and getting close to each other. And right or wrong, whether the players, yes, I understand that youth is not susceptible to the COVID virus as bad as adults and all that, but it's still looked at that they transfer it, they take it home, it goes to grandma, grandpa that goes to somebody that does caretaking for elderly or whatever. So it could cause a problem. That was the idea. Yeah. So we don't want players doing any more putting on gear in the arena than they have to, than they absolutely have to. And we understand that the goalies, it's kind of hard to wander around with your pads on. So the best bet is to come and try to, it's hard to answer that question for me.
Yeah, I just looked at the official board action and there was an exception for goalies. So goalies will be allowed to have a bag. Just to clarify that real quick. That is the official vote by the board. Glenn, running just a little over 8:30. What do you want to do in terms of questions? We have almost 60 open questions at this time. We're definitely going to need to follow up with people.
Yeah, I think we will definitely post, get these questions and then put answers and send them out to everybody. I just wanted to follow up too on what Steve was saying. We know that these regulations are inconvenient and they're not fun. And some of the best parts about hockey are being in the locker room and hanging out. And it's inconvenient to sit there and carry gear without a bag. I mean, no one wants to do that. We're confident that this will be the case for 3 months, 2 or 3 months, and then it's no longer an issue. So we just ask people to put up with the inconveniences for a little bit longer. I guess, Derek, I don't know about others. I could go another 15 minutes and answer as many questions as possible, and then the rest we could post later.
I can take another 15 minutes, Glenn.
Okay.
Hey, Glenn, I'm going to be jumping off here shortly, but I do want to clarify on portions of the rink and just give your rinks a couple of days here to figure out what their plan is going to be. We're still going through that executive order. Some rinks might not allow trainings to take place at all in their rinks. Some might do some more activities than others. So please be respectful to all your rinks and understand that they will also be in difficult situations on figuring out what's best for them for the next 2 weeks. But I can say that MIAMA is in support, working with Minnesota Hockey on your return to play here on January 4th. So again, thank you for allowing us to be part of this meeting tonight.
Thank you for being here, Eric. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
So Derek, if you've got a few more, go ahead.
Yeah. Returning to our question list here. Question on if games that were scheduled during the pause will be rescheduled. How will that work, and what will it look like?
Well, I would imagine it would be a case-by-case basis within the district, and the districts are just going to have to do the best they can with their schedules and figure out the best way to get kids as many games as possible once they're allowed to play. But each district director is aware of that situation and working through that as best they can.
Yes, and I think that was one of the priorities of the district directors, to make sure all league games and district games are played.
We've received a few questions in relation to pod sizes once we are allowed to return on January 4th. Any insight on pod size and number of teams on the ice, that sort of thing?
There's been no mention of pod sizes from the state yet. So I would just say that's an unknown at this point. And we certainly will have an answer before we're back on the ice.
Received a few questions in relation to association COVID coordinators, if they will be required, and if there will be some sort of a weekly or bi-weekly check-in with Mike Terwilliger.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm planning on at least a weekly check-in, some type of a weekly email or mini newsletter, something like that, where I'll reach out. So at least one touch point a week. But again, I'm available by my email, and then I'll be emailing all the ACCs here in the next day or two. And on my email stamp, it has our address and all that, but it also has my cell phone. So you should be able to get a hold of me one way or the other, but at least once a week.
We've received a handful of questions relating to if off-ice game officials, scorebook or scoreboard, scorebook, etc., penalty boxes, that sort of thing are included in the no spectators, or how those duties will be fulfilled.
Those people are game officials, off-ice game officials, so they'll be allowed to continue doing what they normally would do. But you don't have 15 people doing the scorebook and announcing and running the penalty boxes. It still follow the guidelines that were out there before that, with the number of people, limiting the number of people in those positions and in those areas of the rink. Obviously, they're necessary for the play of the game.
Several questions in here related to tournaments, and mainly the understanding that we don't have hard answers on games and things like that and when they'll be allowed, but any indication or feelings that we may have in terms of tournaments being allowed between January 4th and, say, Martin Luther King weekend.
I can't answer that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one to answer. I mean, certainly, I mean, January 4th, we're practice only, and we don't know when games can start, but to think that tournaments can start between January 4th and Martin Luther King Day, I don't want to say for sure because I don't know, but that seems to be a stretch at this point. But if the state says it's possible, we certainly will let everybody know.
Question regarding, if tournaments or invitational tournaments are not allowed through the rest of the season, will district, region, and state tournaments actually be allowed?
Steve, do you want to go or do you want me to answer that?
If you can answer that, that would be great. Or I can do it. That was a definite question when we were talking at the district directors and the district directors meeting here recently. If tournaments don't happen and tournaments aren't allowed, can we feasibly go forward with our region and state tournaments? And there's a lot of trains of thoughts on that. And right now we're planning to go forward with all three invitational tournaments and state and region tournaments too, but more to come, and things could change. That's all I can say. I mean,
yeah, I don't have much more to add other than the tournament conversation is an ongoing part of every meeting that we have, and until we know more, it's really tough to say what, when and how they can start. So that's can only say that's being worked on right now.
Sorry, I'm trying to filter through these questions, ones that haven't been answered already and or maybe the most pressing. So question regarding when return to play guidelines would come out. So if we're expecting to start on the 4th, when will Minnesota Hockey be publishing return to play guides?
Good question. I would think we would aim to have those out, revised and published early next week. Well in advance of January 4th, so people can be understanding of what those are, and and keep in mind that some are guidelines, but there's a whole lot more rules now than there used to be. So that will be highlighted in there as to what's actually a rule that will be enforced by your districts and by Minnesota Hockey.
One of the questions I was just looking at, Derek, was will there be a junior gold season? I sincerely plan on it. I sincerely think that there will. I know there's a lot of good, solid people that are working very hard to ensure that junior gold season takes place.
Here's a question. Will Minnesota teams be allowed to play Western Wisconsin, Eastern North Dakota teams once games do resume? Those border communities, border districts, will they be allowed to play out of state teams?
There again, that was a discussion in the district directors meeting, and the district directors of those border areas indicated that they would probably allow those teams to play, but there again, I can't answer for them. So you would have to confirm that with the district directors of those border districts where the communities are located in.
Here's a question on quarantines that I know has been discussed. Do we know if a positive test on a team will result in quarantines of both teams that played in a game? This was changed in early to mid-November, and any insight on how that will be applied going forward?
Great question. I think it's still ultimately it's up to the MDH, and they look at each one case by case. But in my talking with my friend Jane this week about that very thing, she said in most cases that's going to mean, if it was during a game, that most likely the team with the positive player on it will be quarantined as well as the opponent. But it's hard to say with any of this stuff. It's 100% certainty, because you still going to need to connect with the MDH to get the final answer, but most likely. Glenda, do you want to add anything to that? So you unmute yourself.
Well, I was just going to ask, did you cover kind of what the new quarantine guidelines are from the MDH?
I gave an example. Yeah, I touched base on it. Yeah, on how they're the new 7-day or the 10-day. Yep, and I'll go over that in a lot of detail with the MDH at that HDC training that we'll be doing soon as well.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Another question here. What are the consequences of the new rules that were passed? So the COVID-19 rules that were implemented by the board, what are the consequences of violating them?
That would be kind of determined by the individual districts as to how they're going to handle it. Up to sanctioning, verbal warning, sanctioning, and up to possible teams not being eligible for postseason play. It depends on who violated it, how many times they violated it, what they did, how they reacted, a lot of things. But in the end, it's going to be a district director in the district to look at it, how it's going to be handled.
Yeah, it would kind of be like how a district would handle a non-COVID related breaking of the rules or regulations that are already in place. So kind of up to the district director how they are going to implement that.
And I think maybe last question for this evening here. Let's wrap up with this one on tournaments. Would Minnesota Hockey or consider waiving any increased or penalty fees for invitational tournament sanctioning if we do get the green light? And how are sanctioning fees being managed by Minnesota Hockey?
Yes, I think we would definitely, given the fact that everything's so far up in the air, look at waiving those late fees, given, depending on the circumstances. But, I think that that's something that we would definitely look at. We also have instituted a policy that if tournaments are canceled because of COVID, i.e. this recent pause, the pause through Christmas, and the fact that possibly there was tournaments that are going to be canceled on Martin Luther King Day and other times, that we will refund the fees for sanctioning those tournaments. Now, I think there's a process in place to do that. Derek, can you elaborate on that a little bit, what the process is? I think you're involved in it a little bit, aren't you? Or Glenn?
I'll just real quick clarify, the intent is to return any sanctioning fees for tournaments that were not able to be held. So if you already paid your sanction fees for a tournament this year that either was scheduled to occur during the pause, we are planning to refund those dollars. I'm not sure exactly where that process is at, but that is the plan.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we obviously aren't going to, and I believe the process was, as it was explained to me, that we've also got the USA Hockey fees are still being held in Minnesota, so we'd be able to return those fees as well. So all the sanctioning fees would be able to be returned to the association.
All right. Well, I know we've got more questions. I know Derek is going to download those, and we'll do our best to put answers to those and get those out to the group that was here tonight. I think we can wrap up just by, again, thanking everyone. A lot of great questions. Hopefully we provided some answers. There's some that we just don't know yet. But January 4th is coming. I know it seems like a long time away and longer than we would like, but we are excited that hockey's coming back after the new year. Hopefully it's the start of a great 2021 that's far different from 2020. And we really appreciate everyone working so hard to do the right things in all of this to keep our kids on the ice. We need your help so much, and we can't thank you for all that you're doing. I'm also excited about moving forward here with Twig and his new role, and I hope you can really help everybody out on this call when you need it as much as possible. I think it'll be a great way to provide more communication to all of you and to show the Department of Health how much we're doing to keep our kids safe and control the spread while playing hockey at the same time. So with that, I think we'll close it off. Thanks for everyone's time. Happy holidays to everybody. I don't want to say we want the holidays to go quick, but we really want to get back on the ice soon. So we look forward to that, perhaps more than Christmas this year. So thank you again, and all the best to you. We appreciate it.
I can't echo